Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I want to thank you, your staff, Senator Cruz and his staff, for the bipartisan work on this. You're right when you say it's been a process, but you can hear from the number of amendments that have been vetted and agreed to that it was a good, robust, inclusive process. I do want to call up my amendment Blackburn 4. And this is a simple amendment, but it is one where we have not reached agreement, and I think a good discussion is in order on this. It would raise the mandatory pilot retirement age from 65 to 67, while ensuring that pilots maintain a first-class medical certification that must be renewed every 6 months. This amendment will help alleviate the pilot shortage that is crippling our nation's air travel while still prioritizing safety and experience. And I want to thank Senators Graham, Manchin, Kelly, and Ranking Member Cruz for their support of this legislation. It has truly been a bipartisan effort. Now, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of noise around this, some of it accurate, some of it inaccurate. So let me just clear the air a little bit. What we need to know is raising the pilot age from 65 to 67 is safe. Here in the U.S., we have a decade of data, over a decade of data, to support raising the pilot retirement age. Since raising the age from 60 to 65, we have seen a safe period, one of the safest periods in aviation history, and that doesn't include data that is also available to us from the 9 countries that allow pilots to fly past the age of 65. They have proven that you can do this safely. There is exhaustive medical, acuity, skills testing, and that is the key to making certain that planes are safe. It is not the age of the pilot, and so this amendment preserves all of that testing. In these uncertain times, when there have been some accidents that are terrifying, we've discussed these. They give the public pause, but I think each of us would rather have an experienced pilot in the captain's seat than a younger, inexperienced pilot who maybe has not faced some of these situations. Now, what we do know is this: the pilot shortage is leading to a loss of air service across the country, especially in our regional and rural airports. We pulled stats from Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Montana, New Mexico, Nevada. The loss is significant, and the flying public is impacted. And it's also going to impact these pilots who have served for years. Many of the pilots who will be affected by our lack of action are here in the audience today. And I find it so interesting that we would agree that they should be fired because the union says, because of their age, we ought to be fired. And the union says, well, they're too old to be politically useful. So they're pegging it to an age, not to skills, not to acuity, not to results on a medical test. Now, part of the height of hypocrisy on this is the fact that private pilots and individuals can fly corporate and private after 65. They are taxiing on the same runways, they are flying the same airspace, and they're doing it without age limits. And I think Tennesseans ought to be able to have access to experienced pilots, just like so many of the corporate titans and the wealthy do with private planes. To my colleagues, Your constituents are truly bearing the brunt of these pilot shortages, and you've got a chance to step up today and to support them. And Madam Chairman, I am committed to working with you, with this committee, to make certain that we address this. We know that our international organizations, ICAO and others, are not going to take an action until we do, because we have leadership in this space. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chairman. To wrap up on this, there's been much said about ICAO and the international standard. What we know is we have the leadership in this. If we make a change, they will make a change. We know this. And it is going to be incumbent upon us to be willing to buck the union and to make this change. Now, I had great conversations with a couple of airline CEOs in the last couple of weeks. I had a major airline CEO. They've got 16,000 pilots. They've got planes that are grounded and they can't get in the air because they don't have pilots. And I said, well, let's do this. It was successful when we went from 60 to 65. So it will be successful. He said, you know, it is the right issue, but this is the wrong time. I said, tell me when the right time is. See, when there are hard things to tackle, you want to keep kicking the can. Our nation has a pilot shortage. Our nation cannot hire enough. These airlines cannot hire enough quickly enough to train them enough to meet the hours to get them in the air. And it is very simple. If you are on that plane, you would rather have a seasoned pilot in that captain's chair if you run into turbulence. We're the leader. We take a move. ICAO will make the move behind us. Now, when it comes to saying we don't have data, we have data. We've got over a decade of data of 60 to 65. We've got data from other countries that have raised it to 67. So if you want to look at data on other countries for other things, but you're saying on this one issue, we're not going to take anybody's data, we've got to have a new set of data. I think that that is just another excuse not to take a vote that is going to be a vote that the pilots union does not want to see us take. We know that. The implementation, it's our responsibility to look over that. So, Madam Chairman, I would like to ask for a recorded vote.